Hello, welcome to Floriculture's live demonstration of Mother's Day jar arrangement, featuring glorious flowers that I've picked from my garden just this morning. My name's Amy. If you don't already know me, you will get to know me, and I hope you enjoy today's tutorial. It's going to be possibly a weekly thing from now on, every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So stay tuned for up and coming workshops. So first of all, I'm just going to introduce you to the tools. So we have my red matte floristry scissors. I've got nice cutting paper or ribbon scissors, because these don't necessarily cut ribbon or twine very well, and these don't cut floral ingredients, flowers, foliages, plants, etc. very well. So don't mix them up. We've got a nice clean glass jar that used to be my tomato paste jar. And the easiest way to get this clean is just to soak it in some soapy warm water for a little bit, and usually the label will peel straight off. Otherwise you may have to use a scour to get any glue residue off as well. So I'll put that aside. Now I've got some twine for later on for the decorating, and I've got some burlap, which is just a thicker, more hessian-y version of twine to create, a ribbon. I may be using both. I've also got a stapler, which I'll show you what that will be used for in a little bit. And then my gorgeous flowers. So I just sort of went through the garden this morning and was just inspired by whatever came to me. So I've got a little bit of foliage. I've got some beautiful blue gum, silver dollar gum. That's a small plant growing in our garden. I've got some cordyline leaves that actually came from the cordyline top. So these are the tops right here, and I want to use them as well because they're lovely and springy, and the color is just gorgeous, beautiful for autumn. Then I've also got, and excuse me, I don't know the names of everything. That's my husband's department. He is the garden gnome and I am the fairy. So I will put the names of these at the end when I ask him. These just grow abundantly in our garden. So they're really beautiful, and they just hang so nicely. And again, picking up on that gorgeous wine burgundy sort of color. So if you notice, I've got a little bit of a pattern here. I've sort of got 3 of each item, which is a really good start if you're new to floristry. Working in odd numbers helps you create a better shape. And then I've got these fabulous succulents that I love, because they're mostly grayish blue, but they just have a hint of pink. I don't know if you can see them. So again, picking up on those colors that I've got already. These have just sprouted open. I've just lost one. There we go. Which I just thought were really magical. So, if you're doing at-home floristry, at-home floral design, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. Just look around what's blooming, because you want to do things that are according to how nature is producing. So these go in a big hanging basket on my balcony here. So just so pretty and dainty. Perfect for mum. And then I've got one gorgeous little hydrangea that popped up probably a few days ago, just as a focal point or a centerpiece. And that's all my ingredients basically. So if you'd like to put a little note in the chat pod, because I can't see who is actually there, but if you want to say hello, please send me a little chat. I'd love to know who I'm speaking to. Otherwise, we're going to get started. So first of all, you can put your jar off to the side, because we're just going to start to prepare some of our blooms and our foliages and plants, etc. So these have either been just eaten by something or just knocked about a little bit, so we'll just pick them off. And the beauty when I do my demonstrating is that I'm actually on my deck, so I don't use a bin. I just throw my waste on the floor, and then I use my blower later, and it all goes back to nature. So I'm just picking off these leaves. And by the way, if you are using succulents like I am, these leaves can actually go back into the soil and make more little succulents. So it's just a matter of placing it into soil, using your pinky finger and popping the leaf back in, and over a few weeks you'll have small sprouts growing. So that's all I'm going to do. I don't want to rip off every single leaf. I just want to have a nice clean finish there. So I'm going to do that with the rest of them. Anything that's sitting below the water level, and the water level is quite high in my jar, purely as a balance thing. You don't really want leaves and other bits and pieces sitting below the water level. It's just going to deteriorate the water faster, and it doesn't look as pretty. It doesn't look as nice and clean. And it's all about presentation. Of course, you want your flowers and foliages to last a while, beyond Mother's Day, hopefully. But first impressions do last. Now, there are a couple little odd ones here. There's a little hole here, but it's actually quite a nice leaf. So I'll see if I might be able to disguise that later on with other flowers. Look, nature's not perfect, neither are we, as we've seen in recent events. So we just make do with what we've got and use things to our advantage. So I have the advantage that I have a gnome for a husband who loves to grow and propagate plants. So we have lots to choose from. If you don't quite have that advantage, you may have a neighbour, or you may go for a walk, in the morning and see something that you like and that you might be able to just pick a couple of little samples of. You're doing nature a favour by giving it a bit of a haircut. So I have lost half of that one accidentally, but that's okay. I've still got some long pieces here, and essentially these are probably too long as they are, so they'll need to be trimmed. So just working through our other flowers and foliages, there's nothing I need to do there. The gum, if you're working with gum, it can get it quite sticky. So to peel off the leaves, it's just a matter of running your finger along the stem with some force and peeling them off. Okay, one more. Beautiful. They smell divine. Okay, the cordylines, these are really lovely leaf specimens, so I'm going to leave them as is. However, this one I notice has a big crack in it. So my staple gun comes in very handy because I'm actually going to curl it around. So I'll face it to you, curl it around and actually staple on the inside the leaf to itself, 3 or 4 staples, and that should hold it in place and cover up the little issue that I had there before. So that's what the staple gun is handy for. There's many other ways and techniques that you can hide any issues that you've got there. Actually, I'm just going to put a couple more staples. So you can use parafilm, you can even actually use sticky tape, but I find this method gives you a nice curved look with the leaf, and you don't really see the staples. They're not going to stick out. Okay, so everything except for this hydrangea, which we're just going to peel off some of these leaves, but everything else is pretty well prepared. There's not a lot I can do to prepare these guys. I'm just going to cut them off as I please because that's sort of too big to sit in the jar. So I might sort of cut that one and that one, leave that as is. And excuse the noise, it's dogs next door, they're a bit mad. This is also the joy of working outside. You get to hear all of the sounds of nature and surrounds. Okay, putting it together. So a little rule in floristry is the 1/3, 2/3 rule. So that sort of means that your vessel, or where you hold your bouquet or posy, whatever you're making, below should be 1/3 and above should be 2/3. So what you want to aim for is a little bit more than double the height of this jar. So this essentially here would be our binding point where the stems are going to meet. Oh, be quiet. And and all the stems will be sitting inside, sort of coming towards a middle point, a little bit like in nature how they grow out from a bulb. So I'm going to sort of create a little bit of a cushioning first, maybe by using some of my cordyline leaves. And because I've got one sort of lonely hydrangea, it is going to be a little bit more frontal than all the way round, but I still want to have flowers visually all the way around. So I'm going to sort of make it towards myself and then move it around so you can see what I'm doing. So first of all, always recut your stems, and that's cutting on a 45-degree angle so the water will shoot right up that stem and replenish. So 45-degree angle. And as you're placing, you sort of want to try and lock in your stems into each other. So see, I've sort of crossed those two stems within itself, so they don't sort of move around and swish around in the water. And I tend to work, if I'm doing a little bit of a frontal arrangement, I tend to work from back, top, middle, and lastly will be your smallest and essentially largest placement. So that hydrangea, I'll just put in water while it's sitting waiting. So you could start with your taller elements. You could pop some of your foliage in there, which I might do. You might even think about grouping your elements together. So all the gum can kind of be positioned roughly in the one spot. That'll sort of accentuate the fact that it's grey, it's a bit different to everything else. And be sure also to give yourself variation of height. So actually they're probably sitting about the same, but this one is starting to kick out now. So try to create little triangles where you can. Now I haven't forgotten about this cordyline. I'm going to pop it in, and I'm going to pop it in sort of backwards and curling over. Oh. So those staples didn't sit well. Look, sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. I just have to go a little bit higher. Okay, so you get this beautiful curved effect, but essentially the hydrangea will sit nestled into that. I've also got these amazing cordyline tops that I just thought would be so fun. So I'm just going to sort of mimic my placements with my gum. So I basically just based up at this stage. So I've just kind of created a bit of a framework with foliage and not really flowers, unless you count these as flowers. And now I can start to think about placing some of my flowers. So, well, they're not really flowers, are they? They're actually succulents and plants, except for the hydrangea. So I thought it'd be nice to work with things that maybe you've got at home, but also when your receiver gets this, here comes the sun. After some time, they'll actually be able to plant some of these and then have a beautiful plant that will keep going. So I love flowers, obviously, but yes, it's true, they don't last as long as you'd like. And, you know, and then you're sort of left with an empty vase. However, succulents and plants can keep on living if they're properly cared for. So I just thought it'd be nice to showcase what you can do with succulents and plants that's not just putting them in soil. All right, now these are pretty fabulous. So I'm still recutting those, and I'm just going to think about spatial awareness. And remember, you don't want a boring backside, so maybe turn it around. See if you can pop something in the back there, so there is a little bit of a feature, but always keep coming back to the front. The front is where all the fun and excitement's happening. Oh, these gorgeous, gorgeous plants. And look, I've got one more little one. I think I'll pop him in the back there to keep his friend company. Okay. So that's sort of coming alive now, coming along. How are we going for our height? So the easiest way to measure your 1/3, 2/3 is just to use your hand. It's a fabulous ruler. So you can just go 1, double that, and a bit more. So that essentially is keeping to that 1/3, 2/3 little rule that we like. Now these ones, I just want something that has a bit of height. Just going to take off that little leaf. So again, I'm just going to cut off those bottoms. It looks like it's a very tough and hardy. They will grow back again, even though I'm cutting off these sort of little roots area. They will actually grow back. They'll probably start to grow little roots in this water actually. So that'll be something interesting to look out for too. Okay. So again, I'm kind of working with my triangles here because I've picked 3 of each element mostly. I can create a really easy triangle, and it starts to work a nice rhythm that your eye kind of can follow up to the left, to the right, and back down again. Now this one, I want to sort of hang over here of this cordyline top. So let's see if I can sneak it on this side. So maybe look for where there's some gaps as well, some natural spots of darkness or negative space where a little pop of colour wouldn't go astray. So I'm loving this, I've got to say. Maybe I won't give it to you, Mum. Sorry, I might keep it for myself. Now I've just got the hydrangea left, and then I've got these pretty burgundy leaves. So I might actually put the hydrangea now, and I'll put those leaves last because they're sort of going to hang further down. So hydrangea is looking a bit thirsty, so I'm going to give it a nice good chop. And ideally, if you do pick one fabulous focal piece, you want to sort of encourage it roughly in the middle area, the belly. So if you think about arrangements like people, like the human body, the belly, not here, is your focal point. The belly, that's where you want people to look at, the belly button. Okay, now, so I've got my hydrangea in place. Now, how will I like these? Because these, unfortunately, they are sort of hanging backwards, like the beauty is there, but I don't know if I can really change that. So I'll give it a little snip. And I'll see if I can maybe bring a bit extra height for this. So it's sort of a showering effect. So once you've got everything kind of locked in a position, you've kind of got to navigate through the wild here as to where you put your other elements. Give it a little snip. My idea was at first that it was going to cascade down at the front, but I've actually got a lot of cascading elements there, so I might start to pull it towards the back so that's not completely forgotten about. And one more little piece. Just having a little fiddle there. Let's see if I can bring this a bit more towards the front. Oh, actually, you know what? No, I think I will put it at the back here. Okay. So that is pretty much finished. We have a little fiddle before I turn it around for the magic reveal. This. There we go. So it's very wild. It's got a lot of movement, but it's pretty as well. You know, it's definitely got some eye-catching colors and textures and forms, and you know, it's very pleasing to the eye, I hope. So lastly, I'm just going to put a little ribbon to decorate the jar so it doesn't just appear like an actual jar. And I don't want to introduce any more color, so I'm literally just going to use the burlap and twine. And what I'm going to do is actually cut the burlap and twine together. You can measure first. Use your ribbon scissors. So I'm just going to line the twine on top of the burlap and indicate where your front is, which is obviously, in this one it's pretty obvious. It's at the front where the hydrangea is sitting. And try and tie a little knot. Actually, I'm going to have to cut the burlap a bit shorter. So why I'm using the twine as well is that the burlap is quite hard to actually tie a knot with because it's very thick. But I like that thickness around the jar, so I'm just going to sort of double layer it. Get a little knot around the twine. Then you're sort of free to be able to do a bow with your burlap. And my bows are very simple. I just layer, 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 layer. So layer and loop. Then I cut on the angle. Always cut the angle so it sort of looks a little bit like this. And then this little bit in the middle is where I'm going to tie the twine through. So don't complicate yourself with bows. It's not all about the bow. The bow is just there merely to finish off your jar. No one will ever know that it was once a tomato paste jar. You can cut the twine a little bit. Spread your little loops. And there we go. So there we are, a beautiful at-home floral design featuring gorgeous flowers that are blooming this autumn. Hopefully you've got some amazing flowers you can feature and give to your mother or other significant loved one. Well, thank you for joining me. I hopefully will see you in the future for another floral design at home. Bye, have a great day and a lovely Mother's Day.